Carl here from Malawani, and with me today is a gentleman who needs little introduction. He is the dynamic vocalist and founder of the brilliant Between the Buried and Me. It is, of course, none other than Tommy Rogers himself. Thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me today, my friend.
Thank you, man.
So we've got a little bit to cover today because you guys, for the first time in your career, have released a record, Automata, am I pronouncing that right? 1 and 2?
Or Automata. Sorry.
Automata,
Yeah,
cool.
sorry.
In two separate parts. First of all, let me say congratulations because it's a stunningly good record, man.
Thank you.
Both of them. But it was an ambitious venture as well. And just to begin with the obvious, you'd written an album, separated it into two different offerings, and then decided to release it at two different times. So how did the decision to present it this way come about?
Well, originally we were going to do video content for each album.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, we thought it would be cool to do that. Because time and money, that didn't work out, that always happens. But yeah, the more we kind of sat with it, the more we liked the idea of, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I mean, just because something's been released a certain way, we're like, why don't we mix it up and try something different? We weren't making a statement like this is how we're going to do things now, but the album felt right to do that. There was that kind of intermission right down the middle, which wasn't planned. It just kind of naturally was there, which is, it's rare for us to have a pause in our music ever.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, and just as fans of music and, you know, being in a band, you spend all this time creating your work and then it comes out and then that's that. And like, oh, the excitement's gone. And, you know, we're like, oh, this will be two separate moments this year where fans will get new music. We'll get excited twice this year. You know, it's just, you know, all those things kind of bundled into one. We're like, let's just try it, see what happens.
Sure.
I kind of look at it as when we write, you know, or how we do anything with our business, it's all about just trying new things and seeing what works and what doesn't.
I think it was really clever as well because it kind of stuck out to me was, you know, because especially in this era, everybody has everything, what they want when they want it.
Yeah.
Where you
that was another thing too.
Was it? Yeah, because I was
yeah.
like, you know, you guys were able to build up an anticipation and an excitement twice.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, here you go. I was like, where's the rest of that? You got to wait. You know? And was that kind of conscious as well, part of it?
I mean, that was one of the reasons, you know, for me personally, I love that idea.
Yeah.
I love the idea.
I love it too, man.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
Just because, I mean, like you said, you do get, I mean, we all get anything we want at, you know, instantly, you know, with music especially. So yeah, it was kind of fun having people hear one and be like, I want more, and we're like, hey, not yet.
And I just want to talk a little bit about the concept of the record as well, because correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a journey where you follow your protagonist through a dream in search of a family that he's lost.
Yep.
And while dreams are being broadcast for, you know, entertainment across the world, and he's being taken advantage of also by this company called The Voice of Trespass. I'm right so far? Correct.
You're
awesome.
perfect.
Oh, awesome.
I don't have to answer anything.
But it's coming. But I think it's fair to say that that's not your average explanation of a record.
Yeah, I mean, every album, honestly, when I'm writing stories or anything, I dread the moment of interviews. You know, because it's like, no, you know, I'm saying, like, for that reason, like, what's the album about? It's like it's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, there's not like a simple answer. This one especially is very layered. I mean, there's some simple things that happen, but it just kind of kept evolving, and it has a lot of kind of emotional turns for, you know, the character. And, you know, a big part of it, honestly, is the second half. Towards the end, Chris Cornell died when we were writing. Yeah. And the character almost kind of like absorbed a lot of that. Right. In his story. So because the way I wrote this album, I didn't, like, I normally overly prepare, overly plan, everything's laid out before I even start writing lyrics. And this album, I decided not to do that and literally started with a simple idea and just kind of built from there. So at the point, you know, say The Grid, I guess is the last song on it, at that point, I mean, I kind of knew where I wanted to go, but the Chris Cornell thing happened and it just kind of, it felt, you know, it took the story kind of in a more emotional area, which I think is good with any kind of music, regardless if you're telling a story or something. I think I want to write something that people kind of take something away from and apply it,
of course,
to their mental health.
Absolutely, yeah, of course, man. And one of the things for the record that I love as well is, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to get too deep into it.
No.
It was, you know, it part of it, and you kind of shared that with me there and answered one part of it, was that there is a very personal element to it.
Yeah.
But I also felt for myself anyway that there was a bit of a reflection on the generation as well, where even dreams can be taken and used as entertainment. And I was kind of wondering, did you play with both of those ideas?
All that. I mean, honestly, when I first started thinking about it, I was at a place where I was just wasn't very excited about another concept record, honestly. And I was like, I need to find a way to have some emotional attachment to it, you know, because I was listening to, I listen to a lot of classic rock anyway, and I think in particular I was listening to like a Bob Dylan record, and I was like, there's so much personality and so much, you know. And I was like, obviously it's a very different thing, but I need to find something that I can connect to. So that was starting point A, and I was like, what would be a worst case scenario in my life? And it would be to wake up with my son and my son and my wife missing. So that, I was like, okay, at least I have a foundation where I know that I can, if that ever happened, I had to imagine that it would be detrimental to me. So I could kind of be able to write from more of even though it hasn't happened to me, and hopefully never will, I could get a little more emotionally connected with the story. Cool. And like you said earlier, I mean, to go back to how I was saying, like doing interviews is kind of tough for me. It's not really because the stories are pretty elaborate. It's because a lot of times I don't 100% know everything, and that's what's kind of cool is like a lot of our stories. You know, I see feedback online, and you know, I did a lyric book for that reason. They kind of like show my perspective of the story. But even on like Reddit and stuff, I've seen kind of people's their interpretation of lyrics, and it may not be exactly what I envision, but I'm like, man, that's really cool. And like, you know, I like that there's that kind of open dialogue, you know, for what people think things are about, because my lyrics they're not very like John goes to the store, you know, it's not very, you know, it's pretty abstract, and it's not super obvious of what's always happening. So it's cool because a lot of it just flows, and you know, sometimes I feel bad that I can't always answer the questions, but at the same time, it's cool that not everything is just like cut and dry.
Right, it's open to interpretation, which is amazing. Yeah. I'm going to touch on the record just one more time, and then I'd love to ask you about your solo record, if that's cool, man. Because another thing I love on the record is its versatility. You guys still retain that technical proficiency, you know, and vocally, you can slingshot between some intense stuff and, you know, some really somber moments. It's beautiful. And with tracks like Voice of Trespass, which is one of my personal favorites, can feel like everything from I have an NYC kind of New York City jazz club on Adrenaline to something more quirky, you know what I mean? Which I love it, man. But I remember reading an article once that said, you know, you're in outer space, and every other band or metal band is stuck on planet Earth, you know. And I think it would be fair to say you guys don't necessarily fall into a clique. And I was just kind of wondering, because you're just such an incredibly innovative band, would you kind of agree with that assessment, or where do you put yourself?
I mean, for us, in terms of genres or where we're placed, it's not really up to us, you know. And we've never been the kind of band, even back in the early days, we've never been the kind of band that writes to kind of fit in a particular mold, or you know, if something's popular at the moment, you know, that's just never. We've always kind of just, even though our music's very dense, technical at times, very precise, it's very organic. You know, we're letting it represents us. You know, I think very well, and I think we all have very different writing styles when it comes to music, and I think just as a team we work really well together. Yeah, and I mean, there is no formula. We just kind of have our sound, and we don't think about it, you know, and we're not the kind of band like when we start writing a record, we plan out where it's going to go. And I think that's one of the exciting things when we do write, is we don't know where it's going to go. And I think we kind of surprise each other with things we write and kind of motivate each other to do, you know, to feed off one another. And you know, collectively that's a breath of fresh air every time, you know, because we're always kind kind of pushing each other to.
I love that about
places.
you guys. Even when I go into your Facebook, it's like genre music.
Yeah,
I think that's
forgot we even did
yeah.
that.
Oh, well, I saw it. And
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things we've never thought about genre. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, even when Paul and I started the band, you know, we were like, you know, we were in metal bands, but we were like, we want to start a metal band that doesn't really have boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we've kind of slowly shed our skin over the years, and it grew into something that we never imagined it would.
Well,
you
I'm
know,
glad it
musically or, you know, as far as success. So.
Amazing. Well, thank you for talking about that. I'd love
Yeah.
to talk to you now about Don't Touch the Outside,
Yeah,
if that's cool.
of course.
Because when I discovered that record, man, it had a profound effect on me. I loved
thank
it.
you.
Especially Milan. Like,
Yeah.
that song just, like, instantly ended up in the realm of the repeat button for me. I just
Awesome,
got so
awesome.
addicted to it, you know? But I was kind of wondering, when it comes to your solo material, because I've been a fan of it for a while, I've always wanted to ask you, do you get to scratch a very different itch with that? Because you guys, in Between the Buried and Me, you're quite diverse and versatile, as we said already. So you get to explore, you know, a
Yeah.
magnificent scope there. So is there something else entirely that your solo career does for you,
Yeah.
including this record?
Definitely. I mean, for me, it's literally any and everything I can try.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the band, it's obviously very experimental, but I don't know. It would be tough for the band to have like an electronic record,
Right.
or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that, you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So I mean, there's really I'm very lucky that I don't have the pressure of doing anything outside of what I really want to do,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and simplicity is key for me, because the band is so much work and it's so much that goes into these songs. It's nice to, with the solo stuff, a song can be born from one idea or
Mm-hmm.
one riff, and you know, there could be a song with 4 chords,
Mm-hmm.
you know, which really obviously isn't something that falls in the band, you know, the BT
Yeah.
band category. So it's just a lot more loose. I think that's the kind of the itch it scratches. And for me, I write solely. I mean, for the most part, I write most of my music when I'm on the road with BT Bam. So it's almost therapy in a way. You know, on the daily level, it gives me something to do during the day and kind of just try anything. You know, I'll wake up and be like, you know, I'll sit down my laptop and just start messing with a sound, and things happen.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun.
And it's
I
incredible.
never know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
I literally never know where it's going to go, and that's what's fun with it.
That's what I was going to ask you, because this one in particular is such
Yeah.
a incredibly collaborative effort as well. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Every second song or so, you know,
Yeah.
it's featuring Christopher Reeve, there's somebody else, or somebody else, or somebody else. I'm kind of wondering, because as you said, you're not someone who plans it. Do these guest appearances kind of just, are they pre-planned, or do you kind of go, do you know who would really be cool on this? You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I have guys that, you know, that are like bucket list kind of moments.
Yeah, right,
Like
sure.
Christopher was one of those.
Yeah.
You know, and honestly, I didn't think it would happen in a million years. And he got back to me, and it happened. And it's like, you know, still one of those moments that, you know, I pinch myself about. But, I mean, yeah. I mean, Wes, I've wanted to work with forever. He's a great guitar player. I love, you know, but me, I like kind of utilizing people's talent in a way that's different. Like him, I was like, I want him to have a super metal solo over a rock part. Which
Yeah.
is different, you know, and like,
Awesome.
And I needed someone that could rap. I'm not gonna even attempt that. So, you know,
Few people would like to see you try.
I grew up listening to Candere, and they're like a big part of my DNA. So I got him to do that. Yeah, so I'm trying to think who else. You know, Einar from Leprous.
Yeah.
You know, who I've phenomenal singer, and you know, with him, I wanted to do a song with him, but I was like, I'm gonna throw him on, I want him to work on electronic songs,
Right.
because it's different, and I think his voice would be cool with it. So,
Awesome, man.
yeah, so it's just it's fun to just kind of not wing it, but it's a lot more loose than,
Cool,
than
man.
I'm used to. Yeah.
Love it. And I'm not going to keep you too much longer. I just want to touch on the record then. Finally, is one of the things that kind of stood out to me was when I was listening to it, it would take me from a place of, you know, kind of real ease, almost meditated place,
Yeah.
and then almost immediately just kind of propel me to this other kind of what's
Yeah.
good, this chaos, this unhinged sense
Wake
of
you
it.
up, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I was kind of wondering, is that just the way the songs fell, or did you kind of
No.
was that something that came about?
I mean, I had a big chunk of songs written. You know, the band, we always prepare everything exactly how we want before the studio. But for me, you know, I didn't know song order. I had some chunks here and there that I knew would work well together. But yeah, that's how I wanted the record to kind of flow. It's weird. My original idea was to have it flow like a hip hop record.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, if you listen to like To Pimp a Butterfly, Kendrick Lamar, there's all these. It's very jagged and it kind of it jumps really quick to different places, and I really like that about that. And I even had a lot of kind of random segue stuff written for this album that didn't make the cut to kind of create that vibe. But the songs just kind of naturally did it in itself, just because they are so different from one another. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of have it slow ups and downs and kind of bring you to all these different places.
I love the waves in
because that's how, you know, I think it represents, that's how my musical brain works. Mm-hmm. It's all very, you know, there's days I wake up and want to really be in a quiet, peaceful, pretty headspace musically, and other days I want to write chaos. So yeah,
that's awesome.
That's kind of where
I love it.
Comes from.
And finally, man, I just want to get your take on something that I talked to a lot of artists about, but I've been particularly looking forward to getting your take on, which is this. It's referred to as a state of retromania, which is where, you know, a culture has an addiction to its own past, which of course we could apply everywhere, but specifically to music, I've talked to artists, you know, from different generations and all this kind of stuff, and some of them feel that, you know, there's a huge addiction to its own past right now, where at the point where it's concerning, and others feel, no, there's a lot of forward thinkers out there who are just kind of buried in this oversaturation of accessibility we have. And I'm kind of wondering, as a band who and a gentleman who I consider it to be a huge forward thinker and incredibly innovative, where do you stand on that? How do you feel about music culture at the moment?
It's tough, man. I mean, I don't think, it's just we're in a time and place as human beings where, you know, pretty much everything's been done, especially in the music spectrum. And, you know, people argue, you know, people were more creative with songwriting, you know, in the 60s, 70s, but it's like they didn't have, you know, it was all fresh. I mean, everything was new. Effects were new. You know, studio, you know, things in the studio were new. Reverb, you know, like simple things that, you know, and then technology came and, you know, just kept evolving. And I think music evolved with that. I mean, be it electronic music was born, or, you know, all these different things. And I don't know. I mean, I don't look backwards. You know, I think it's just about, you know, it's all personal taste, and it's all, I think, as a musician or anybody that creates anything, you gotta just be yourself, and either that's gonna be a little different or it's not. I don't think there's any way to like force it in either direction.
Right.
But yeah, it's just tough. It's just a different world than how it used to be. I mean, people would take 2 years to record. It's like time and money now. You can't do that. Everything's rushed. You know, labels need things out faster, you know, because the money's not coming in like it did in the 80s. Or, you know, so there's all these factors why, you know, people can argue, you know, what eras are better or whatever. I think it's irrelevant. I think good music will always be there. People will always create good music. It might not always be 100% unique, because it can't be, unless you just start, you know, farting into a microphone, but there's probably someone that's done that, you know. There's probably a record out there of somebody that has done that.
Probably, yeah.
You know? I mean, so, yeah, it's just, I think it's just all about expressing what you can express as a human, and, you know, that's all you can do.
And that's probably
I really don't analyze it that much, honestly.
That's one of my favorite answers I've ever been given to that question. So thank you so much for your time. Both the records are stunning, and just the very best of luck to you guys for the rest of the year and beyond, my friends.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.